Hello, how are you today? Yeah? Okay, my name is Marcin. I came from Poland, from Warsaw. Today I will talk about form for website. It's not too loud? The microphone is okay? Yeah? And to know better each other, I make some web design and code in Dream Focus group. After work, I like wind, water, windsurfing, and books. It's my hobby. And I'm first time in Bratislava, and first time in WordCamp Bratislava too. So I hope it will be a good experience for me and for you. My presentation will be in two parts. In the first part, we look close how the form is built. We talk about sending methods, form attributes, form fields, sending files via the forms, some data validation, form security, and how we send the form. In second part, we grab all this knowledge to make a practical example and implement some WordPress form. Okay, so now let's start it. When we search in internet, go to websites, almost every website has a form. It could be contact form, user registration form, placing orders form, search engines, adding comments, make some financial transaction. All of those is a contact, is a forms. Okay, and this is it's working, yeah. And this is example of very simple form. We see the 4 input fields, 1 text area, 1 checkbox, and 2 buttons. But in the other side, on the backend side, we see that the simple form could look like this. We have a form syntax inside HTML with inputs and buttons. So it's simple. Okay? Now we jump to first step. So we talk about form attributes. The first attribute is the method of sending. We have 2 methods of sendings. The first, I will talk about it, is a method get. The get method is used when there are few parameters, and those parameters are passed in the URL, in the address bar of URL. And this is an example of how this URL can be. Okay, yeah, it's working. Okay, this method can be used when we pass the parameters via the link, but it also should be remembered that the parameters are visible in the browser address bar. So we shouldn't use this method, for example, when we code the login form. Okay, it's very important. The next method is the method get, the method post. The post method uses headers to pass the parameters. This method allows us to pass many more parameters than method get, and those parameters cannot be seen in the address bar, so it's saved. We can use this for example login form. And depends on the methods, the data from our form is going to one of those super global arrays, the method, the get and the post. Super globals means that the arrays, the data from these arrays we can see anywhere in our PHP code. Okay? So it was the first attribute, important, but we have some more attributes. And very quick, because the first part of presentation is like a basic. So we have an accept chart, set, some action, autocomplete, ends type. And ends type is quite important, because in our example, we will talk about how to send a file via our form. And I talk later about ends type and how to change this to use this functionality with sending some files via our form. The method, I talk about the method, name, we can validate in HTML or no validate, we can set the target and real. Okay, every form has some fields. There's different types of fields. And we talk a little bit about these fields and the type. The most known is a text. It's a text type. It's for entering a short text. We have checkbox and radio for single and multiple choice fields. We can file, email, URL, number, date, time. And we have, of course, hidden type. Hidden type is for passing some parameters. And we have input like a button. The type is submit, reset, and images. Okay. Of course, we have types connected with the data. So it's date, time, week, month. We have phone, search, password, call, and range. If you would like to put some more text in our form, we use the text area fields. And we can make and select multiple to group these fields. Okay? Like form has attributes, every field has attributes too. But this is very important that not every field has the same attribute. No attributes, not every attributes work for every type of fields. And in very short way, the placeholder, I think, is most known attributes. It's a temporary text for the field. But this attributes works only for text, search, phone, URL, and email. In otherwise, this attribute is ignored. So we can put this in our code, but it's not working. It's very similar with autocomplete with autofocus. Autofocus, when we use these parameters, when we load the page and we would like that our user go to our first field, we set to this field autofocus. Checked is the selected by default. It works only for radio and checkbox. Mode, and min length and max length is a specified minimum and maximum characters that can be entered in our fields. And it's only work for text, type, search, password, URL. Multiple works only for two types of fields, like file and email. When we put these attributes, we can select more than one file and tap index to the position of the element by tapping in navigation. Okay, the rest of fields attributes is name, pattern, when we define the pattern of our text. Read only is a Boolean value, indicates the user can modify this. We can set the required, and of course height, width, and source. It's work only with image type. Image is some kind of graphical button, used only for this, and the value. Okay. And the last one is data list attributes. We can use this to make some hints or tips for our user. And it works only, it's not working for hidden fields, checkbox, radio, file, or button. We can group our fields. So it's example. And that's all about the fields. If you would like some more information, this is a link to documentation to read about this. Okay, we have one more extra field. It's called button. It's very similar to input. We have only three types of button: button, submit, and reset. The attributes is quite similar to input. Okay, and now it's important. We think about to create our form, not only with text. We would like to send some file through our form. And it's very simple, because when we do first time, we think, okay, so I only put the input type with file, and that's all. No, it's not working like this. Because when we only put this one type of field inside our form doesn't work. Why? Because in the first two or second slide, I talk about form attributes like end type. And default, the end type attribute is like this. And this attributes not allows us to pass files via our form. So we have to change the attributes to multi-part form data. If we don't do this, our form not working. Okay, and one more thing. We talk about two arrays, get and post, and when we send the file in our form, we use the third array. This array called files. And this array is super global too. So when we send the files via our form, in these arrays, we have some information about our file. We have the name, type, size, temporary name, or information about the error. But it's who knows the broken website? Anyone? No? I meet some hackers on client websites, and the website sometimes is destroyed, sometimes is using for bad things. One of the way that hacker can destroy our web page is to put some bad code in our web. It can be done by sending file, PHP file or another type of file with a bad code. So it's very important when we sending and uploading file to our server to protect against this. So it's necessary to check the correctness of entered data every time on the server side. Okay? And this is short example how we can do this, use the file array. In this example, we would like to check that our file should be the size of our file should be lower than our max size. So we check our file and grab the size of our file, compare with our max size, and if our file size is higher, we show the error. Else, we put our procedure with sending and validation our data. Okay, and the next subject is validation. So we can make a validation in the front end. We can use JavaScript. We can use HTML markup to this. And in HTML we have two attributes like require. We can force the user to fill the fields, and the pattern to define the pattern of the fields. And these two attributes works only for these 5 types of fields. But do you think it's work every time? No. We can switch off in our browser. So when we Google our website, open DevTools, and we put in our form no validate attributes, our validation is not working. When we switch off JavaScript in our browser, it's not working. So this type of validation is okay, but we always should make a validation on the backend side, okay? And we use the PHP function like filter var or filter default. Of course, in our WordPress, we have function divided in categories like data validation, securing input and securing output to make data validation and sanitization our form. And this is, I think, is must-have. Yeah? Okay, next step, sending the form. We can send the form, of course, in PHP. We use the PHP function called mail. We can connect this function with some Ajax, and we can use the ready script like PHP mailer. In WordPress, we have a specified function called WP mail to do the same. We can connect this function with Ajax, and of course, we can use some plugins. But today, I only talk about the code and how to code the form properly in our website. The next step is securing protection our form against the spam. There's a lot of method to do this. We can use Google reCAPTCHA, PHP CAPTCHA, math CAPTCHA, we code our CAPTCHA, you use honeypot. But in WordPress, we have one more thing. We have WordPress nonce. Okay? Do you know what is it? What is it? WordPress nonce? No. It's some kind of protection. It works like this. WordPress generates every 24 hours some unique number. And this number is very unique for this instance of WordPress. We can change, of course, the period of the time from 24 hours to 12 hours. And how it works in the form. When we would like to use this unique number to check the correctness of our form, we can use one function, one line of code. This function is WP nonce field with 4 attributes. All of these attributes is optional. And how it looks in the practical way. So when we code our form, we put this in our template. Okay? But in the DevTools, this function generates 2 hidden inputs with some ID, name, and of course we have a value. And this is this number. Okay? So every 24 hours, this number will change. We can set this interval to 12 hours, maybe 6 hours, if we like. And to put this in our form, it's only first step. The second step is we have to validate this number on a backend. So if our user press the button submit, and before we submit our form, we should check if the nonce field exists and if the verify nonce is okay or not. And in this example, we check if none the fields exist, and if none the verifies is okay, we show the error. Else we can do procedure with sending our form, make some validation of the data, sanitization, and sending in the finally. So the method is quite simple and very easy, only few lines of code, and the form is more secure. Okay? So finally, it's the end of part time. In very short way, I will talk about sending form attributes, form fields attributes, sending file, data validation, form security, sending form. Now we jump to part 2. So we grab all this knowledge and think how to implement this in WordPress to create our own form, not use a plugin. Create our form in our team. You see, it's very easy, and not always you should use a lot of plugin to do this. Okay? And we implement this in a short 4 steps. First step, we create a HTML form markup. Second, we create page template in our team. Third, we send this with Ajax and WP mail function. And in 4th step, we can make this more flexible, and we create a shortcut with our form. Okay? First and second point is on the screen. We see a HTML markup in our page template file. We have a header, footer, and between them is our form. It's a very simple form for this example. And next, we would like to send our form. So, like I told, we use the Ajax method to send our form and WP mail in PHP. So, we can use contain scripts in WordPress. In this case, we use the jQuery to call some Ajax and jQuery form to grab some data from our form and communicate with backend. And the list of the included scripts is under this link. WordPress has lots of very useful scripts inside. And how we do this? First of all, we go to our function PHP file and we enqueue scripts. If the script is inside our WordPress, we can enqueue this script only like this. So put jQuery form. We can define our script with directory JS, myscript.js in our team directory with jQuery. We use the WP localize script to pass some PHP data to JavaScript and do some action to enqueue these scripts. And one more thing, because when you would like to send some Ajax in WordPress, we should use two functions, WP Ajax and the name, and WP Ajax no brief the same name, and this is the name of our function. Do you know why we use both of these functions? Not only one? No. Because one of these functions works only for logged user, and another works for not logged user. For we should use both of them for all kinds of user. So when we define this action, we create a function. In this case, is create applicant, and in this function we code everything we need. So we grab the data from our form. We make some data validation, data sanitization, use WP announced to check our form and send this to the server. Okay? And the last point, when we would like to make some flexible, so because when I code our template, so my form is only on this template. But when I would like to have my form on every page in my website, I can create a shortcut. So I use action add shortcut with shortcut name and name of function. And in this function, I create our method of validation, sending, and HTML markup. So, and I would like to use only this shortcode to show our form everywhere in my website. Okay? And the last thing, good practice, of course, in my opinion, when we code the form. So first of all, we should validate HTML in the front end. The second, we have to validate and sanitize data on the backend, always. We can use WP nonce or other method to verification and secure our form. We can remember about Ajax. Ajax is not necessary, but it's useful. And if you would like to give some more flexibility to our solution, we can use a shortcut. So I think it's everything. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I'll be there.
Ďakujem. Niekto nejaké otázky? Alebo chceli by ste niečo ešte objasniť?
Yeah, it's okay.
How strong is the nonce protection?
Sorry?
How strong is the nonce protection?
What does it mean, how strong?
Do you get spam emails?
It's possible, but when I code some form, I never, ever see any spam when I use nonce. But it's possible to use, for example, two methods, the nonce and with honeypot together. Yeah?
So you don't need to use full reCAPTCHA?
No, without reCAPTCHA. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your talk.
Okay, thank you.